Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another local transfer show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. The title of my show pretty much reflects how I'm feeling right now. It's definitely mixed feelings or mixed emotions. Considering that we had a great bomber yesterday in regards to Isak joining Liverpool, or a deal was agreed for him to join. We thought it was going to be an easy step in the right direction, or something that was going to be a formality for us in order to conclude the deal for Marc Guehi. But unfortunately, it never panned out like that. So we'll speak about Marc Guehi and we'll speak about Isak as well. So yeah, let's get into it. I feel like I've got a lot of frustration, so I've got a lot to get off of my chest. So yeah, bear with me because I'm quite peed off in terms of what's happened today. And earlier on today, it felt like everything was set. Liverpool agreed a deal with Crystal Palace of 35 million plus a 10% sell-on clause for Marc Guehi. They had a replacement in Canva, who they signed from Toulouse. Personal terms with the player was agreed about a month ago. So Marc Guehi went over to Liverpool today to undertake his medical and was set to be unveiled to the world as a Liverpool player. But because of one idiot, the deal fell through, and that's that guy right there. And that that dickhead is Oliver Glasner, who pretty much pulled the plug with an ultimatum to Crystal Palace, telling the owners that if they sell Mark Guehi, he walks out of the club right away. So in that sense, Palace didn't want to take any risk, and unfortunately, the deal collapsed in the 11th hour. So my thoughts in terms of it's been a few hours now since all of that transpired. Um, I'll speak about the player first. I feel for him more than anything else because just look at the last 24 hours. He scored a belter for Palace against Villa. The match felt like it was the final curtain for Mark Guehi and Crystal Palace. After the game, he didn't want to clap directly with the crowd, but you could sense the atmosphere that the fans knew that it was potentially his last appearance for Palace. His post-match interview, in quotes, he said, "I grew up in South London, and this club means a lot. It has been an honor to captain this football club." So that's a farewell sentence right there. And look, if you look at the whole transfer scenario, he conducted himself in a very professional manner where he didn't, go AWOL. He didn't, you know, stop training. He didn't refuse to go pre-season. He acted like a model professional. He allowed the clubs to talk business and didn't make a huge fuss. He didn't submit a transfer request or anything to that nature. But looking at it now, was that the right thing? Morally, of course it is. That is how you should conduct in that kind of environment. But in the end, you know the saying, nice guys always finish last. So that's exactly how it's panned out here. From when you've got the likes of Wissa and Isak, a player that we've just signed, showing their stance and pretty much forcing a move away from their clubs. You're looking back thinking in hindsight, maybe Gay should have been a bit more aggressive, a bit more, should I say, maybe should have followed suit in regards to those players because this was the summer where player power was definitely a thing and it was very visible to the world. And look, let's put it on to Liverpool right now. Should we look at the owners to suggest, why wasn't the deal done early on? I wouldn't quite say in that way. I'm not hugely disappointed with Liverpool because I think they did everything, by the book. And when it comes to clubs, they do have to do it by the books. Otherwise, there are consequences. But you know, uh, I feel like just to give a bit of you know perspective in terms of the way they operated. Maybe if there was less haggling regarding the final add-ons, maybe we could have got that deal done a lot earlier, or Palace would have, you know, found a replacement, without allowing them to do it in the last day. But look, for me, the reality is Crystal Palace effed up. They're going to lose out on 35, 40 million because when we come back for Mark Gay in January, which I strongly believe we will, we're not bidding anything near that figure. I kid you not, we should be probably bidding about 10 million. And look, if that's not accepted, we'll take him for free next summer. He's definitely got his heart set on a move to Liverpool. So for me, if Liverpool look elsewhere and find another target, that's a different conversation. but I think they will literally go back for Marc Guehi and try and get him in the next window. So from a Crystal Palace point of view, they've lost out on money that could have played a crucial role in their future success. And let's look at their recruitment throughout the whole summer. It's been shambolic. They are in a position where for the first time they're playing European football. It's not Europa League, but it's still Conference League. So this was the right time to, you know, use your sources or use the project as, we're a team that's on the up. We've just got European football for the first time. And, that could have been a great way to sway players to come over to Selhurst Park, but they never did that. They haven't recruited heavily as I expected, or as a lot of Palace fans would have accepted as well. So in this scenario, know, they left themselves very late to find a replacement. They've signed Canvo. That's something that's been discussed for the last few days. But you know, approaching Igor on the final day, why would you let that happen? In terms of why would you let that rejection happen? Of course, players will of course have an opinion in terms of if they want to make a move or not. But number one, it's Brighton. It's a Brighton defender, so they have a rivalry. Of course, it's not intense as any other rivalry, but they are rivals. So that deal would have been a very tricky one to conclude. And number two, you would have had some sort of dialogue with his reps to give you an indication if the player wanted to join or not. And he quite frankly declined the move. I don't know if he ended up moving to West Ham because that was the other club that he was linked with. But for me, it doesn't really matter because in the end, he's refused Crystal Palace, and that's led to this move potentially collapsing. I wouldn't say it's the sole reason, but it's definitely a reason in terms of why this deal wasn't done. But the main reason why it wasn't done is because of the manager. Glasner, excuse my French, acted like the ultimate bitch. Saying that he's going to walk out if Mark Gay was sold. Now, he's a manager that I respected because of what he's achieved over the last few years, but I don't really have any respect for him anymore. He's actually very emotional, and that could cost him in the long term because Guehi would not be pleased about what's happened. He's at Liverpool right now. He's not even in London. He's at Liverpool. He's just finished the medical. He's probably got his family with him, his reps with him. He's probably taking photos wearing a Liverpool shirt. He's probably done all of the media stuff for all we know. But now it's where he has to come back to South London, you know, embarrassed, ashamed that he didn't get his move in the end. Of course, it's not down to him or his rep's fault. It comes down to the club. It comes down to Glasner in terms of his stance of not allowing the player to move. And, when you have a coach and a player, even if the player wants to move on, you have to respect the player's desire as well. And in this situation, he should have let him go with open arms in terms of, career your football careers are very short. So if you want to go, you've got our blessings. But he acted, in a very emotional way. And look, in the long term, it could affect their maybe in the long term, in the short term, it could affect Crystal Palace's season because Guehi might not perform the way he normally does. It would definitely affect his performance. He may even refuse to play altogether. It sounds harsh, but when a player's been so professional and so respectable in the whole situation, but then all of a sudden you've taken something away from him, you're going to have to expect a reaction from the player. It doesn't matter if you're Mr. Nice Guy or not. You're going to get some sort of reaction from that individual. So he must be really peed off right now, and I feel for him because he would have got his dream move, or he would have got the move that he was hoping to get one day in his career. And it looks like it's on the back burner now. I expect Liverpool to come back, but there has been moves in the past where it hasn't. So, for example, we were very close to signing Nabil Fekir, if you guys will remember. That move never materialized again. So, I don't think that would be the same scenario. But you just never know in this day and age. So look, I'll be honest, I'm peed off, as you can probably tell by my tone and the way I'm talking right now, that we didn't get Mark Guehi because from a Liverpool point of view, adding him to our squad would have been the perfect transfer window. It would have been 10 out of 10. For me, it's about a 9 or 9.5 out of 10 because of the quality of players that we brought in. But it would have been a 10 out of 10 for me if we had got him. But look, even though I'm peed off right now, I'm not angry. And I'll tell you a few reasons why. Because Joe Gomez is staying at the club. So I know a lot of fans mixed opinions about him because of his injury record and his lack of availability at times. For me, he's a player that provides great cover for different roles. So I feel like that was a good thing that he stayed and wasn't moved on in this window. We have signed the centre back, so let's not forget that. We have signed Giovanni Leone, who will probably be given a bit more of a push now to challenge for first team spot. So I'm excited to see how he develops. Konate picked up an injury against Arsenal, but from what we've heard, it's cramp. So it's nothing too serious. So he should be fit and ready to play in the next fixture. So from his point of view, I really hope that with the window closed and no more transfer talk about Real Madrid and all these negotiations, all that stuff. I hope that he puts his head down and focuses on playing his best because he's been woeful in the last few weeks. And I feel like the distraction of the contract talks or potential move to Real Madrid may have impacted his thinking or his way of playing. So with that, put to bed, hopefully, he can focus on his game now. And look, the negotiations about his new contract, let his reps do that now. That's their job. That's what they've been paid to do. So let them do what they're doing. He's getting paid to be a top class defender. So that's what he needs to focus on doing going forward. And look, finally, to Marc Guehi, keep your head up because we will be back in January to sign you. So I'm not too angry. I am disappointed. I am peed off, but I still feel like the player will come at Liverpool in due course. Just gonna go through some of the comments before we speak about the next rumor, or should I say official news, more or less now. Aya says, big up Aussie and chat. Assalamu alaikum. How are you? Walaikum salam, Aya. I'm doing well. Hope you're good as well. He says, smash the likes and subscribe. Welcome to LFC. Isak. We also should got Guehi. You never walk along. Yeah, you're 100% right. We should have got Marc Guehi um, today, but fortunately, it wasn't down to our doing it. It was more so Oliver Glasner giving an ultimatum to the club that he walks out if he gets sold. Unfortunately, they took the bait, and unfortunately, the deal collapsed in the final hour. AR says Liverpool's squad would benefit from the addition of a centre back, a defensive mid, and a winger for squad depth and reinforcement for a long season. I agree in terms of the areas you mentioned, but I still feel like we've got adequate cover for the midfield, and we've got enough attackers in our wide area. So for me, the centre back was the one that would have gave me more assurance into this long season. The other two, I think those two positions will be addressed next summer. It's not a priority. It's not something where we are lacking in our squad. We have the numbers, we have the quality. Of course, you can always add to what you have, but I don't think it was always top of our agenda in this window. So for me, if we had signed Mark Gay, it would have been 10 out of 10. Right now, it's probably a 9.5 just because we couldn't get the defender through the door. But I'm hoping we do end up getting him in January. AR says we've got to balance the midfield properly with a technical DM, a box to box midfielder, and a number 10 Bert Flourish in that position effectively and efficiently. We don't really play with a box to box midfielder. We don't really play that kind of style. A technical DM, yes, that would help. But of course, that DM has to be a bit more of a complete forward or complete player, in my opinion. Needs to be someone that's a bit more just a bit, bit of a destroyer, but can also dictate play as well. So signing that player, it's not an easy find, but they've got 12 months to do that now. So hopefully, they've earmarked someone as a potential candidate for next summer spending. And in terms of number 10, we've got Verts, we've got one of the best in the world. So for me, only amount of time that he unlocks his true ability to the world. AR says Maka and Verts in midfield with the 4-2-3-1 or 4-3 won't give us the right mix of creativity, fight, grit, height, strength, and toughness. I think it will. I think we're looking at it the wrong way right now because McAllister is not fully fit, and that's quite evident in terms of his recent performances. And Verts is just into the Premier League, so he's going to take a bit of time to get used to the physicality and the intensity of the way the game is played in this country. So just give them time. McAllister has shown that he can be aggressive. He can be, a player that is physical in challenges. So in McAllister, I have no doubts that he's able to do that. He just needs to find his full fitness right now. And in regards to Verts, just give him time. He will show his true quality very, very soon. Yeah, I said if Van Dijk gets injured, we're screwed this season. We really need Marc Guehi in our defensive backup. I think for now we have enough cover for the centre back position. Of course, Marc Guehi would have been the cherry on top because they would have solidified our quality as a backline. But right now, we still have Van Dijk, we have Konate, we've got Leone, who's not played for Liverpool so far, but he's a player that has huge potential and is earmarked as Van Dijk's successor. So for me, there's a lot of expectations for him going forward. And then you've got Joe Gomez, and if we need to, we can always put Endo there as a fifth choice um, backup centre back or Robertson as well. So you've got about six options there until Jan, because I'm expecting us to sign Mark Guehi in January. So in about 3-4 months, we're able to add Mark Guehi to our squad. So that's the way I'm looking. That's the way I'm staying positive right now, because I do think we will try and sign the defender in the end. Yeah, so could you please clarify where we are planning to position of Ekitike in the starting lineup? It will depend on our opponents. It'll be on a game-to-game basis. I think it could easily be where we play a 4-4-2 diamond formation, where you have Verts and you have you have Ekitike and Isak together. I feel like it's going to be more of a thing where I see Isak playing on the left and then Ekitike through the middle, and during the games they will interchange, because that's how Isak has played over his career. He's pretty much a left winger for the Sweden national team, but likes to drift inside as well. So not saying he's an out and out left winger, because that's not the way we would play. He'll be more of an inside forward, but interchange with Ekitike, just like it was last season with Gakpo and Diaz. They did the same thing as well. So similar tactics, just two different profiles there. So for me, that's the way I think both players would set up in our lineups. Uh, AR says, will Stefan Bacic, Jaden Dans, Reece Williams, and Calvin Phillips have a key role in our squad? No, none of them would have a key role in our squad. Karen Ramsey, I'm still surprised he's here. I thought he was going to go out on loan, but of course that never materialized. Reece Williams, I totally forgot about him. So he'll have to play for the under 23s, because he's nowhere near the level that we want in the first team. Jaden Dans, I think he'll be first choice striker. If we need another forward, then he'll be a viable option. I would have liked him to have gone out on loan. I think that would have been the right thing for his development at this stage of his career. But maybe it's something that's on the cards for January. And Stefan Bajtic, mixed ones on that one, because I thought he may have left the club this season because he had a lot of interest from La Liga, but due to him picking up an injury, that hasn't helped in that scenario. So when he does return to match fitness, he will definitely provide cover for the midfield, but they don't play a key role in our squad one little bit, in my opinion. Delusive, pick up yourself. He said, hope Glasner gets sacked. I hope so as well. And I'm not even just being reactionary. The way he's conducting himself, I hope it, bites him on the backside eventually. Man is bitter and a sore loser. He screwed Gay over. He 100% did. It's not even about Liverpool. Of course, we're peed off as Liverpool fans, but when you've got a player and you've got a coach, it's a very like a tight relationship that you have, and they probably have had discussions about his future and all that sort of stuff. But to let the player go for medical with his family and everything, and get everything pretty much completed, and it was just on the 11th hour where it had to be pretty much confirmed, he pulled the plug and pretty much backstabbed the player. That's literally how I'm seeing it. So for me, yeah, he's a sore loser, bitter. And it was a bit of a bitch move on his part, because he was willing to walk out if Gay was sold. So yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous in terms of how he's acted. But we'll have to move on. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Um, Delulu Steve said Palace already filmed the farewell video. I've seen the leak. That I think it was for his own social media account. Or it might have been for Crystal Palace. I'm not too sure. But yeah, that video has been leaked, because it was quite evident that he was going to leave. The way the match was set out for him yesterday, he scored a fantastic goal. Saw it earlier on today. What a finish it was. And the way he was clapping the fans and the way he spoke after the game, it felt like a farewell tour for him. It really did. So he's probably very upset to what's happened today. And it will definitely affect his relationship with the coach. The coach might think, oh, he'll have to act professional, but there's only so much you can do in this kind of manner, because he's been mistreated, he's been betrayed, he's been backstabbed in this situation. So you might not get the Marc Guehi that you were hoping to get, because now he's peaked off. He's human. He's going to feel that emotion. He's not going to, run through a brick wall for you just because you're telling him to do so. So you know, they might regret what they've done here, but it's for them to figure out in the end. Dulu Steve says, so two Newcastle fans back in Palace. The bitterness knows no bounds. Yeah, it is what it is. But it's ironic because Newcastle made about 10 million bids for Guehi last year. They wouldn't have spoken about Palace in that kind of like last season, 12 months ago, would they? So, yeah, some fans can be very fickle when it comes to these sort of moments. Dara Azizi, big so he says, I want to make history, says Isak. Now that's ambition. It takes courage to do what he did. Gay needed to be ruthless. I agree. In hindsight, you're probably thinking he should have been ruthless, but I thought he probably thought, let me conduct myself in a professional manner. Um, they probably had discussions that, if Liverpool come in, a bid will be accepted. So he probably got false promises, and now unfortunately it never delivered for him. So yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately. Gay cannot be absolved of all responsibility. This is business. Being a nice guy doesn't mean anything. That's what I said earlier on. Nice guys normally finish last, unfortunately. So in this scenario, should have been a bit more selfish about himself, about his career. But it's a learning lesson, I think. Lack of availability at times. He's played 150 Premier League games in 10 bloody years. Is it 150? Well, look, it is what it is. Of course, he started as a young player, so let's not, kill ourselves. Put it into context. He started as an 18-year-old. So, um, for me, I don't really look at the last 10 years. For me, it's about the present season, and what he produced against Arsenal was good for me in terms of him being a viable option from the squad. So with now only four centre backs, I don't want it to be where we utilize him too much. If we had five, if we had Gay, then it would have been where we used him a bit more sparingly. Now we may have to use him a bit more than planned, maybe for the cup games and all that sort of stuff. So um, yeah, I don't, it sounds like you're not happy about Joe Gomez staying. For me, I rate Joe Gomez. So yeah, that's just my views there. Um, Batman, big up resources. I feel for Gay. Yeah, I agree with you there. I feel for him as well. Does playing in Conference League tie Champions League? Of course not. Not in a million years. But it wasn't really down to the level of the European football. It's more so the coach, the manager in Oliver Glasner who pulled the plug, unfortunately. So yeah, not the best because of course the relationship will be tainted now. So let's see, what happens going forward. Yeah, so do you trust putting Gomez and Kanate, Gomez and Leone, Kanate and Leone? In terms of combinations, yeah, I think they all work. Gomez and Kanate, they've played together before. They seem fine. Gomez and Leone, I haven't seen it, but I think on paper it would work because you've got an experienced defender in Gomez, slash you've got a young up and coming defender in Leone, so it should be, a good balance pairing there. And Konate and Leone, yeah, I think that would be fine as well. Leone is good because he could play left side or right sided, so he's multifunctional in that regard. Because the compilations I've seen, he's played on both sides, so he's very comfortable on either side. So it shouldn't be an issue in terms of finding that sort of balance. So I don't have too much qualms about Leone. From what I've seen, he looks like he's a player of great potential, but I didn't want to put too much pressure on him to deliver or to be in the firing lineup so soon. If he had Mark Gay, then he could have, bided his time and put him there eventually. But let's see, how the season goes for us until January, because I do expect us to go for Mark Gay once again. Um, he asked, what do you think about Isak's injury record? Yeah, of course, he's got a record of injuries in the past. The last couple of years, it hasn't been that bad. Last season, he didn't have like huge injuries. Of course, there were moments in time where he was out for a few weeks, but you know, he's human. So not everyone's a Van Dijk or Mo Salah where they are continuously fit throughout the whole season. For me, with regards to Isak, the good thing that I'm looking at the squad is that we've got an adequate cover in Ekatike. So if Isak's not available, we've got Ekatike that can come in and put in a shift and pretty much replicate what Isak would do on the pitch as well. So I'm not concerned about it. I'm not going to, let anyone put a downer on this signing because of his injury record. Everyone has an injury record to some extent. So for me, I'm not too concerned about it. That's something for Liverpool as a medical team to focus on because maybe at previous clubs he was overworked or certain trainings didn't suit his body. So you have to put context into that as well. But for me, it's not a huge concern because we have adequate cover and quality within our squad. Dallas is horrendous. AR, yeah, you can call it horrendous, but he's a Liverpool player, so I couldn't care less. AR said, "Why can't Liverpool kill games off?" Well, we've got Isak now, so that will help in terms of killing teams off in that regards. Um, but we beat Arsenal yesterday, so I'm not sure in terms of what you're referencing in terms of why we can't kill teams off. We've won 3 games out of 3, so we're winning games. So is it in reference to keeping clean sheets? That's a different conversation. But we're killing teams. We're beating teams. That with Isak now, we will kill teams. We've got a real gunman in our team now, so that's the difference going forward. AR said, yeah, we've got to watch how much he plays with his injury record. I'm not too concerned about that, to be honest with you. That's I love Jogo. I'm a massive fan. His injuries just got through my head. And yeah, I agree. Like whenever he plays, I feel like he's such a solid defender. And it's just those unfortunate things where when he picks up an injury, it's not one of those small things here and there. It ends up being long-term injuries. So I really hope he's able to play a run of games and help us in this season because, there was that time when he played left back that looked really, really good. And there was times when he played right back as for us, and I was like impressed with his crossing ability as well. So he's a player of great quality. I'm pleased that we kept him because there were rumors that he was on the verge of leaving, or there was interest from the likes of Palace at one point, and then AC Milan as well. So I'm pleased that he stays. I know he's not a player that we can heavily rely on. But for me, to have him as an option in the squad is still better than nothing. That's how I would look at it. I'd rather have Gomez than add Reece Williams to my team if that makes sense. So you have to be respectful in terms of that situation, and hopefully Gomez does play a part for us this season. And Batman says, I hope Leone gets a game for Italy. He may do. They rate him very highly, and they picked him for a reason. So hopefully he gets some sort of game time there. Dara says, I can't respect Isak enough. From the burning of his shirts to the death threats, he showed ambition, courage, and determination. He did. He was determined to become a Liverpool player, and you got to respect him. You really do. Uh, Being a Liverpool player doesn't negate the facts. In terms of Joe Gomez's injury, yeah, I get your point. Or I don't know if that's in reference to Isak's injuries, but you'll say it's facts, but then look at recent times. Was he injured for a long period of time last season? I don't think Isak was. So there was that part, I think, between September, October, he was injured, but then after that, he was lethal. He was scoring goals back to back, in my opinion. So that's where he showcased why he was one of the best forwards in the league, and that's why people are fearful that we've got Isak now. So players get injured. Apart from Salah, who's you know, one of a kind. Most players do get injured, so it's part and parcel of football. It's just how it goes. AI says Liverpool fixtures after international break: Burnley, Atletico Madrid, Everton, Palace, Galatasaray, Chelsea, United, Frankfurt. So here's some interesting encounters there. The Everton one I'm looking forward to because Isak, I expect him to be involved in that one. I think that would be the game where I feel like maybe he's found a level of full fitness, not quite there, but good enough to start. So in my mind, I'm thinking that's the game where he starts for us. Burnley and Atletico Madrid, I think he comes off the bench. Everton, I think that's the one that he starts. But that's just my prediction there for Isak. AI says Liverpool versus Southampton in the Carabao Cup third round. That should be a good tie. That should be a great chance to see the likes of Leone in first team action. You'll get to see the likes of Chiesa playing as well. Um, who else do we have? Rio could come in, train Leone as well. So it'll be a good chance to get some of the youngsters through. And if there's any players that need a bit of momentum, like Conor Bradley and Frimpong possibly as well, that's a great game to utilize the squad. So looking forward to that one. That should be a good fixture. AR says, good to see Chiesa to mental support and help Leone settle in. I said that when we were first linked with Leone that it is actually very important for us to keep Chiesa on a off the field basis because he's going to be Uncle Fede right now, where he's going to support him from a language point of view. Even though I've heard learn to speak English, he speaks very good English. So, uh, but from a adaptability point of view, he'll get to have another Italian compatriot with him that will, show him the ropes and help him settle in very well. So yeah, it's good to have players like that because that is one of the reasons why you keep certain players in the squad. There's reasons why you sign certain players because you're thinking when they come in, they'll be able to mix very well or mix instantly because of language and cultures and things like that. So that's something that I'm sure the hierarchy definitely put into consideration when they recruit players. So it's a good one to have Chiesa there because we don't normally have a lot of Italian players in our team. So it's good to have Chiesa and hopefully it will help Leone settle in very quickly as well. Dars asked, would you continue with Dom at right back? I was talking about Gomez. Is that okay? Fair enough. In terms of Dom at right back, no. I think once everyone's fit and ready, I would place Frimpong as first choice or have Conor Bradley challenging for that role. Suppose that for me needs to be in the midfield, whether that's in a double pivot or in a 10. Me personally, might be a bit of an unpopular opinion. I would have Gravenberch and Szoboszlai as a pairing until we see McAllister back to his full fitness, and then we can rotate the players during the season and during the course of different games coming up as well. So yeah, I'd play midfield, but it's good to know that if we need a midfielder to move over to right back in a game, or if we have injuries like we have done recently, he's good enough to be a makeshift right back in that role. And two man of the match performances, you can't go wrong with that. So yeah, I think it's a good thing to have in our squad that we've got a player that is more than capable of producing top level performances in any position that he's played in. So yeah, it's a great player to have in our squad. Yeah, so would you put in right back Frimpong or Bradley or Szoboszlai? I'd play Frimpong as the right back. That would be my first choice. Does it's hard to displace Dom right now? It is, but you have to find a space for him. So in the next game, I would bring him back one of the right backs and then play Gravenberch and Szoboszlai. That would be my double pivot going forward. So let's see how it goes. AS said, will Wirtz come good at Liverpool FC? 100%. He will come good. We just have to be patient. Will Mamadashvili get game time? He'll probably be utilized in terms of cup games slash Champions League games as well. So he will, but he will have to buy this time because we've got one of the best goalkeepers in Allison that is ahead of him. So he will. He's regarded as the long-term successor, so he needs to just learn the ropes. Use Allison as a mentor, be a sponge, and soak up as much information as possible. So when Allison eventually does move on, he's fit and ready to be the number one at the club. So this is a great time for him to learn off one of the greats, and hopefully that will reflect in his overall performances in the long term. So yeah, hopefully that's how he sees it, and it's not more of an ego thing because you do get keepers that have that kind of ego where they don't feel like they can learn off the other person. But I think in this situation, it's a key role there where you can learn from one of the best. So I think he'll have more cup games this season, and yeah, if we need him in the Premier League, he can be utilized there as well. But yeah, let's see how it goes. Now let's get this mug's face out of my screen there, and let's talk about something on a brighter note, and that is that we have signed Alexander Isak. The dream has come true. The player I told everyone that he will be joining Liverpool is finally here. I kept my stance just as strong as Isak has. He's refused to not anyone budge him in regards to moving to Liverpool. I've kept my stance of saying that he is going to join Liverpool. So we've been, strong-headed, and we've definitely kept our opinions to our chest. And look, for me, even to see that picture on the screen just feels surreal that we've actually signed Alexander Isak to our club. British transfer record, of course, of 125 million pounds. And he's not a project player. He's not a player that has potential. He is the final product. Like, he is a player that can elevate our game going forward. And quite frankly, for me, he's one of the best strikers in world football. So I am over the moon. If you saw my show yesterday, I was shameless. I was wearing sunglasses just to, add a bit of arrogance to the stream because this was the player I thought if we got him, people need to be quick in their boots. Honestly, this is a player that will add that fear factor to any opponent that we have this season. Even when we faced him last year, he was the only player or the only striker that I feel like, you know what, if he gets a bit of space, he can hurt us. And he was the best striker in terms of performing against us last season. Scored a spectacular goal. I believe Kelleher was in goal, smashed it in top bins. Unstoppable effort. But of course, he's been scoring goals like that left, right, and centre throughout the season last year. But also since he's joined Newcastle, he's been a real prolific striker for them. They're of course bitter. They're annoyed. Um, they've called him a rat, but they've welcomed Johan Wissa with open arms. So make of it what you will. Football fans can be you know, biggest hypocrites around. But that's just how it is. That's the nature of the game. But overall, I am so pleased that he has signed for Liverpool, and it's going to be very interesting in terms of how the team is set up. Whether he plays as a lone striker, whether he plays on the left side, and Ekitike plays through the middle, or vice versa. It's going to be intriguing. And for me, from a tactical point of view, it gives us a bit of unpredictability to our opponents because they'll try and suss us out in terms of how we're going to set up, but it might not be what they think or what they envision. And when the game happens, they're like, bloody hell, he's on the left. I thought he's going to play on the right or in the central area. Like, we're just going to confuse our opponents. So for me, um, he brings that, but in terms of end product, there was a section of our fan base that pretty much loved Darwin Nunes for all his effort and stuff, but this is the real deal. This is the guy that can finish any type of shot. Headers, left foot, right foot, 30 yarders, volleys, bicycle kicks. He can do everything. So for me, some fans will say, Haaland's the best striker, and I just feel like it depends on in terms of what you like and what you prefer in your striker. I feel like without, being a biased fan that he's a Liverpool player now, I've always looked at him as one of the best strikers in the last couple of years because stylistically, he's my kind of striker. Like he's a player that isn't just static around the 6 yard box. He likes to roam around. He's great on the channels. Great dribbling ability. He dribbles like a winger. Um, so for me, he's one of those players where it always felt like a far fetched or a pipeline sort of dream, but I was always adamant that he's going to be a Liverpool player. Ever since we were linked to him, I thought, you know what, it has to be him. It has to be Isak coming through the door. So look, I am overly pleased, over the moon that we have signed Alexander Isak, and I can't wait to see him playing in a Liverpool shirt. Of course, he's presented in a Liverpool shirt there, but I can't wait to see him in action. Of course, we'll have to be patient with him as well. He hasn't trained, or he hasn't played, I should say, a preseason game because of his stance of not playing for Newcastle. So he's been selected for Sweden. So that might be the first game that he plays, whether it's from the start or he comes off the bench. It'll be some sort of competitive action for him. And then once he returns, he'll be. I think Burnley is our next Premier League fixture, so that'll be the game where I think maybe we'll see him come off the bench. And then we've got Atletico Madrid. I don't expect him to start for that one. In my mind, I think he's the one that's going to start against Everton. I'm hoping he scores a banger against them as well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how he develops in our team. That's exciting. We've got Ekitike, Isak, two top strikers. Let's not forget, Newcastle fans are telling us that they're going to play 4-4-2 with Ekitike and Isak, and they're laughing at us, thinking, we're not going to get either players. We're not going to get their prime target, and we're not going to get the star striker. Well, we're the last ones laughing now because we've got both of them. So we're the ones that are going to play 4-4-2, not you. So um, it's funny how things turn out. It's funny how the tables turn, and I'm all for it. So I'm very excited to see Liverpool play with Alexander Isak and Ekitike together, but just excited about Isak altogether. So look, even just some of the pictures today, it feels so real. Just see, because obviously in the last 2-3 months we've been talking about Isak, and I've been using all these AI images, but of course we've got an AI here in Alexander Isak. And okay, that's the celebration I'm expecting him to produce. When he's banging the goals. Number 9 as well. That was a shirt that number that was available. So we've finally got a real number 9. It's been a long time since we've had a striker of his ilk in our team. So I'm so excited seeing how he does. This is him having an interview earlier on today, and he's already formed a friendship with Jeremy Frimpong, who seems to get along with everyone. So, yeah, it puts us in a great position, and yeah, very very excited in terms of how he does. So yeah, looking forward to seeing Alexander Isak in a Liverpool shirt. Just gonna go through some of the comments before we speak about the next rumor. AR says, "I hope no one gets injured at international break." I hope so too. It's always one of those periods where someone's picked up a little knock or here and there, or sometimes it's not even just injuries from playing football. It could be fatigue as well, especially with the South American players. They've traveled all, all over the world, and they've come back. They're not fully fit to start in those upcoming games. And last year when we faced Nottingham Forest, that was a lesson that Arne Slot learned because we played Diaz and McAllister, who literally traveled from across the world and were straight in the lineup. They weren't fully fit, they weren't at it, and they ended up costing us in the end. So, team selection will be interesting in terms of our next fixture, which will be not this week, the following week against Burnley. Expecting a bit of rotation, but yeah, we'll speak about that in due course. Dara said, best of luck to Elliot. I'm going to speak about Elliot very, very shortly. Um, Blue Steve says, I had my doubts, but Oz never budged, kept the same energy since day one. Appreciate your message there. Thank you, Delulu Steve. Does he wants to be part of a generational team? You can't argue with that. 100%. You can't argue with that at all. Could you see Slot starting Ekatike and Isak together? If so, what formation and who misses out in the starting 11? I can see it happening. It's not going to be the mainstay shape or formation every week, but I can see in some games where Ekitike is on the left and Isak's through the middle and vice versa. I think that will be where they both interchange because I feel like they're both effective in both type of roles. If you look at Sweden, so I'm probably gonna to watch the Sweden game. In fact, I might even do a watch along. So don't quote me on that. But if he's playing, then I might even do a watch along just to see how he does there. So they're playing on Friday. They're playing against Slovenia in a World Cup qualifier, and then they're playing on Monday as well against Kosovo. So yeah, if he's playing in any of the fixtures, if you see a live stream that's comes out of nowhere of a watch along, you know why I'm doing a watch along for Sweden versus Slovenia. So we'll see how he does because I've not watched Sweden too much in recent times, but I've been told that he plays on the left hand side for the national team. So that shows me that you know he's a player that can play as a wide forward. And I'm not trying to compare the two players, but stylistically, he's like a Thierry Henry, where Thierry Henry started his career as a winger, eventually became a striker, but in those days it was a 4-4-2. So he had a like a Bergkamp next to him who would drop deep and then allow him to play on the shoulder, but he also liked to attack in the channels as well. And I think Ekatike likes to play in that manner. So yeah, we've got a real talent in our hands, and I'm so excited to see him play. Uh, Dara says, loved Nunes, really? Not me. If you're not familiar, there was a lot of Liverpool fans that were, you know, presenting unconditional support for Nunes throughout the years. I would go based on game basis in terms of how he's performed, but he can have a terrible game, but then people are like, oh, he's worked so hard, he's done this and that. But for me, if he hasn't improved the bread and butter, which is banging in the goals, I wasn't going to show too much support. But he's definitely played his part in our success in recent years, but he's just not a consistent performer in terms of his finishing ability. His finishing ability never really improved. So for me, um, that's something that probably affected his contribution to the squad because when he first came, you get it, come from a different league, you're getting used to the Premier League. Uh, your finishing can be a bit erratic, but that was his whole spell. He was very erratic in front of goal for me. So, um, yeah, obviously he scored some, great goals for us as well. But at the end of the day, yeah, he just wasn't the guy that a lot of people saw him. He just wasn't that guy at all. Of course, he's doing well in Saudi, but let's be honest, a lot of players are doing well in Saudi. It's not a difficult task. It's not European level football. So, yeah, he was loved by certain sections of the fan base. some people still wanted him to stay, regardless of Ekitike or Isak. So for me, no, that wasn't my stance, unfortunately. Um, Dara says yes, Steve. Either Ekitike or Isak on the left. I think so. I think it will just depend on the opponents based on the right back that we're facing or the way we want to play. I can even see them playing as a two-man strike force if at times as well. So, for example, when Salah's at AFCON, that might be the role we deploy. And unfortunately, if you're asking me who drops, it could be Gakpo would drop in certain games. But it's a good headache to have because Gakpo will play a lot of games as well, but then there might be games where he's on the bench and he's used as a left wing option. But Gakpo can also play up top as well. So, it's a thing where all three players will definitely contribute or play together at some point. So for me, yeah, Ekitike or Isak on the left. That's why I feel like we didn't really push for a left winger. One, because of this dynamic in terms of having Ekitike and Isak, and number two, the emergence of Rio. We didn't want to block the pathway too directly. I think that's why we were looking at the likes of Fofana and Morgan Rogers because they were players that were adaptable in different positions. We weren't looking for an out and out left winger, in my opinion. So yeah, that's the way I'm envisioning it to be either Ekitike or Isak on the left. Um, AR says our midfield needs to be aggressive, tough, hard, creative, and support the defense and forwards. Of course, all day long. And I'm sure they will be like that throughout the season. AR says good luck to Simicast and Elliott with their careers. I hope their loan spells become permanent. I think with the Simicast one, there's no option or obligation to buy. The Elliott one, I think there is, and we have a buyback clause as well. So if he does well, maybe he returns to Liverpool in the near future. Dara says agreed about the Henry comparison. You're the first person I've heard say that. Well, if you agree with me, great minds think alike. That's the way I'm saying. I'm not saying he's the next Henry or anything like that. But stylistically, the players are similar, and I actually think, Isak's mentioned in interviews in the past that that's his role model. That's a player that, he's kind of made his game towards. So like he's evolved in terms of how he watched Thierry Henry over the years. So for me, it's evident the way he plays as well. So yeah, if we get anything like a Thierry Henry type player in our team, yeah, we'll be laughing. Let's be honest. Delulu Steve says now us wanted Nunes gone as soon as possible. Been in these streams often enough. I did, and I'm not going to sugarcoat. I did. But yeah, a lot of fans, Steve will tell you as well. A lot of fans were showing unconditional support for Darwin Nunes. Honestly, like if a player's been great, I would definitely give my plaudits to those players. Don't get me wrong, but when he's been terrible, I'll say it straight, he was terrible as well. So no one gets that free pass of not getting criticized. Salah for me hasn't been great so far this season, so that would be my assessment of him. So you know, the 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 the, the Nunes army were in full force at times in the last 2 3 years. Dara, as you said, I was talking about obviously not us. Big up yourself, Dara. Um, AR says I didn't like Darwin Nunes from the start of his Liverpool career. Good, he was gone. Good luck to his career Al Halal. Yeah. To be fair, it's a strange one because I remember that summer very well because it was between Darwin Nunes and Cuckoo. Those are the two players that we were linked to. And if you remember, and Cuckoo was prolific for Red Bull Leipzig, and he was a player that could play in different roles. Could play as a 10, could play as a 9. And in my head, I think I wanted Nkuku because he would have been the natural successor to Firmino. I know it sounds a bit exaggerated now because he's nowhere near that level, but stylistically, he would have had a player that can drop deep but can also be, great in front of goal. And Darwin Nunes was a different type of option. I think for Jurgen Klopp, he saw Darwin Nunes as an upgrade on Divock Origi, where with Divock Origi, whenever he started, he wasn't as impactful. But when he was off the bench, he produced so much clutch moments. He wanted a striker like that, but could be a starter for. I think that's what he saw in Darwin Nunes. But with Darwin Nunes, his finishing, it was an issue from the first season he joined. I just felt like he was very erratic. We've been blessed to see a lot of top strikers in Liverpool over the years. And when you've watched the likes of Michael Owen, Robbie Fowler, Fernando Torres, Suarez, these strikers, what a top striker is in terms of the way they finish. They're ice cold in front of goal, calm and collected. They're not erratic. They're not just smashing the ball every time they get a chance on goal. They're either dinking a ball, they're placing a slide footed finish, or they're finessing it. There's different techniques, and that used to be my reference in regards to Darwin Nunes, where he had one club in terms of a golf term there. Whereas other strikers, they'll have different clubs for different situations, different techniques, or different, shots in terms of their armor. And he just had one technique where he just smashed it all the time. So that's why I felt like, first season you give them that sort of that that all right, fine, it's your first season. We'll let you adapt. We'll let you get used to the way we play. But the finishing was the same over the years, so it never improved. Um, and people were like, "Oh, but he does so well for Uruguay. Why doesn't he do it well for Liverpool?" It's because where he's playing, it's not played in that intense level. And the way he played, he was a chaotic, a very aggressive player. But if you put him inside a scenario where the game is played at that pace, maybe even more, it's not like he didn't have the game intelligence to maneuver that type of game. When it's played at a slower pace, that's when he could use his chaosness to his advantage and then cause havoc to the opposition. Whereas in the Premier League, when everything's so quick and played at 100 miles per hour, he doesn't have the time to process how to play in that way. So just wasn't the right fit for Liverpool, wasn't the right fit in terms of the Premier League. Of course, he's at Saudi, but if he was to return to Europe, I think he'd do really well in Serie A or La Liga. I think those leagues all suit his skill set. So I don't think his career is done because he's in Saudi. Of course, he'll be earning a bucket load of money there. But if he chooses to come back, he can. He's only in his mid 20s, so has a long time to return to Europe if that is what he decides to do. Yeah, said I would like an additional centre back, DM, and winger. I think we all would, but window's closed now, so the signing that I'm thinking of is Gay. That's the one in January. Of course, we'll see how the squad is in terms of any sort of issues that we have. If we touch wood have any injury issues in our squad, and we need to add more players to our squad, maybe that's when we would assess the market there. I think Marc Guehi is the one that's top of the list, and then from there onwards, we'll see how the squad is. I don't think we'd make crazy signings in January. Maybe an opportunistic signing comes up where we've earmarked someone as a summer target, but all of a sudden, someone's placed a bid, and we think, "Oh shoot, we're going to lose on our target," and then that's when we come in. Um, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Gay will be the one that comes in the January window. Maybe another attacker. You can't rule that. The DM, I think the DM is for next summer. And it could be someone like Anton Wharton, someone along those lines. Um, hopefully Glasnow's not there. We're trying to deal with him. But um I think the winger might be an issue. Or not an issue. I think that might be an area that we address if we have an issue. But I feel like we've got enough adequate cover for that role, even though Harvey Elliott's gone. So we do have less numbers now. Um, Dara says trying to sell Nunes was like trying to sell a chocolate teapot. Tells you all you need to know. Yeah. Um, there was a point during the summer where I was like, you know what? Just someone take him on loan. Honestly, I really wanted him to go. But look, in the end, he got the move to Saudi. We got a decent amount of money for him as well. Probably not. We haven't made a huge loss, which is the key there as well, in my opinion. So I think everyone's happy. Al Hilal got a top striker. We got enough money to finance other deals in the squad that probably helped get the Isak one over the line. So yeah, everyone should be happy all the way around. Dara says, "Great stream, mate. I liked it. I liked it for you. Big up yourself, Dara. Appreciate you liking the stream. Thank you for your support." Denise says, "I'm waiting for us to mention Bradley Barcola. Can't go a stream without it. That's the guy I want, guys. I've been manifesting Isak in the last few months. I'm gonna manifest Bradley Barcola. Maybe he's that surprise signing in the January window, or maybe we sign him next summer. So yeah, Lucy knows that's the guy that I'm, dreaming of joining Liverpool one day. So yeah, let's see if that happens. in the near future. Dara says Stiller. Stiller's a great shout, to be fair. I definitely think he's on top of our list. Not number one, but I think he's definitely, in the top five. So I do feel like he'll be heavily scouted this season. Look, if there's an opportunity to sign him, why not get him in January? But I think, we'll probably see how it goes. I think he'll be regarded as a potential target for next summer. So that's the way I'm seeing because I think he's got everything that we need as a profile. He's defensively really good. He can sniff out a tackle as well, but he's a great player on the ball, left-footed, so adds a different dynamic to our team. Uh, Good passing range. So for me, he would be a good mix for us to have in our squad because I think he'll complement playing alongside a Gravenberch, a McAllister, and even a Szoboszlai as well. All Jones in that scenario. So he'll be the right fit to form partnerships with these different players. So that's the key there, finding players that complement each other. And I think that will be the way to go. So Stiller, I think is a great shout. I think he's definitely someone that we would probably look at in the course of the next 9 to 12 months. So yeah, definitely a great shout there. Dara says Barcala's class. Yeah, I rate Barcala very, very highly, as Delulu Steve will tell you as well. So yeah, hopefully, he can be a Liverpool player one day. Joe Gomez. So just briefly touch on Joe Gomez. In terms of today, of course, very, very close to moving to AC Milan. I think yesterday felt like he was close, but then today, this morning, it was pretty much cut up shop. I'm just happy that, we've kept him on for one more season. I know he's not always available, but I think his experience will be key, especially when you've got the likes of Leone as a new centre back that's come through, 18 years of age. You've got Kerkez who's quite young, so having experienced players like Gomez will bode well. Even Conor Bradley on the other side, but of course he's played with Gomez for a while, so already has a good understanding with him. So for me, I'm pleased with him because I know a lot of fans were very open about selling Gomez a few days ago, and were quite disappointed that Liverpool didn't accept the 30 million plus a loan move for Gomez to Palace not so long ago. So for me, I don't feel like it made any sense to sell Joe Gomez. Even if Marc Guehi came through the door today, I think it was where we needed to add Guehi to our squad, not have it where one in and one goes out. It wasn't like that because Kwanzaa is the player that Guehi should have replaced on paper. That's the player that we sold a couple of months ago. So Gay was supposed to replace him in the squad. So for me, we still have a vacant space. Leone has probably been brought in a year earlier than planned, possibly, because he was getting a lot of interest. Inter Milan were on it, like they really wanted to sign him, but I think we probably blew them away in terms of the bid that we placed. So thankfully, we've got the long-term successor. I think the club have earmarked him for Van Dijk. We missed out on Dean Howson, but of course, with Leone, in terms of stats, was probably top of the list amongst the young sort of centre backs last season. So for me, I'm excited seeing how he plays. I've seen compilation of Leone where he's manhandled the likes of Lukaku and Vlahovic, who are real physical specimens, aren't they? So for me, that bodes well, especially as an 18-year-old. If he's showing that kind of aggression, it only shows that he's got the potential to be one of the top defenders in the world at one point. Um, so yeah, I'm happy Joe Gomez is stayed because I feel like he'll provide great experience alongside the young players in the defense, and he seems like a very positive character in the squad as well. So for me, I'm happy that he's staying. Some fans may agree, may disagree, but in my point of view, I'm happy that Joe Gomez is staying for the foreseeable future. And the final news, or yeah, pretty much news. There's no more rumors today. Is Harvey Elliott uh, surprisingly moving to Aston Villa? We didn't really get any links prior to today. The links was predominantly Red Bull Leipzig, Crystal Palace, and Tottenham. Those were the three teams that we thought maybe Harvey Elliott would be joining. And in the end, he's signed for Aston Villa. I think it's a good move for the player. It's a great club. He'll be working under a very good coach in Unai Emery. Um, in terms of the setup, it'll be interesting to see, where he plays. Does he fit the right wing role? Or is he going to play as a number 10? I think he'll play both. I think it'll be predominantly number 10, but I think he will play on the right side at times as well. So um, It's a good move for him. It's a loan move right now, so 1 year loan with an obligation to buy for a fee of £35 million. Could we have asked a bit more? Possibly, due to the fantastic performance he produced for the under 21s early in the summer. But 35 is still a respectable fee, if I'm being honest. So I wish him all the best. He's never been a player that's shown any attitude or any issues. He's always given his all, whether he's played uh, a bit part role or he's not get the games he wanted. He's always shown a real commitment, and he's one of us. He's lived his dream. He's played for his boyhood club. So for him, that's something that he can proudly stay, for years to come. And look, we've got a buyback clause. So if he really performs there, there's no reason why we wouldn't bring him back because he has the quality. It's just that at the stage right now, we've got players that are ahead of him in the pecking order. So he needs game time, for him to develop and further his skill set. I think it's the best time for him to move on. And Aston Villa are a solid club. He'll be playing European football, I believe, as well. So for me, it's a great move for him. Great coach, good players around him as well. Passionate fan base. So yeah, it's a good move all around. So yeah, I wish him all the best. Uh, I would have liked him to have stayed, if I'm being brutally honest. Maybe acting a bit greedy here because I feel like he would have given a great cover for Salah and Verts. But now we've got one less attacker, so it's going to be interesting to know how the team evolves. We'll probably have to play Frimpong at right wing on occasions now because we don't have a like for like cover for that role. But yeah, I wish him all the best. He's definitely deserves all the success in the world. He's been a great player for us, and yeah, hopefully he smashes it against Villa. Of course, not when they play against us, but from his point of view, hopefully he does well, and hopefully he gets selected for the England squad. That's been one of his ambitions, and he wants to go to the World Cup. So hopefully he's a first teamer and he's able to showcase his talent on a week in week out basis and gets what he desires. So yeah, wish him all the best. Um, that's the final news. Just gonna read the final comments here, and then we'll close the show. Delusi said, "Let's just hope Kobe." I think you mean Joe. Stays fit until January. I hope so as well. Um, but it's good to know that we've got players that could be makeshift if needed. So the likes of Endo could do a shift at centre back. Robertson could do it as well. We tested him out in preseason on that basis. If we need to put him in that role. So um, yeah, hopefully, Gomez stays fit and is available for team selection. But I still believe, regardless if he is fit or not, we still need to sign Marc Guehi. That's my stance. That's what I feel like the club will do. The fee will be interesting. It's going to be nowhere near 35, that's for sure. Um, I'd bid 10 million, 10, 15 million max. Nothing more than that. They don't deserve more, to be fair. So hopefully, they can get a deal done soon and say, look, you messed us around. We still want the player. He still wants to join the club. So, um, let's make sure we get the player what he wants, and that is a move to Liverpool in the end. Delisi said, final thoughts on Richard Hughes. Uh, do we know now what he does? 100%. If you haven't seen the stream yesterday, I gave a bit of an analog where I basically, apologized to Richard Hughes, in terms of what he's contributed to the club. I wasn't familiar with his game, and my stance remains. And look, I'm not big headed as a content creator. I will always admit if I'm wrong in certain situations. And look, I've been, blown away by the level of players that he's recruited this window. I didn't even think it was a possibility. The only possibility that you can see these type of players come in is when you're playing FIFA. So, you have to give him all the credit. In terms of today, the Mark Gay one, it wasn't down to Richard Hughes that it didn't happen. You know, they pulled the plug in the final second, which is very frustrating. But everything else, he's delivered perfectly. It's definitely still without Gay by far the best window we've ever witnessed. Being a Liverpool fan, so no, he's Don Richard in my eyes. So yeah, I hold him with very high regards. So yeah, he is the guy right now. So yeah, my opinion has changed, and yeah, he gets a lot of respect. Uh, from now on. So yeah, so that's my guy right there, Richard Hughes. So yeah, big up to Don Richard there for a fantastic summer window. And look, that is it for today, guys. We've finally wrapped up. Um, a transfer window has been busy, but from a good point of view as well, because last year I was struggling to do content because we were barely linked with anyone, or if we were, it didn't feel like those things were going to happen. This year, every day there's something happening. So it's been a great journey, during the off season where we can talk about transfers. But look, we'll be back in a few months' time. Hopefully, Marc Guehi will be the player that we speak about. Maybe another player comes through the door. But yeah, now, with the window pretty much closed now, we can focus on football. We can focus on upcoming games. And yeah, the season is in full flow now. So yeah, looking forward to the season ahead. Of course, we're in an international break now, which is very annoying. It's just the timing is just so odd, isn't it? Just after the window, because you want to see the new signings in action. But we'll have to wait a couple of weeks, and then hopefully, Isak gets a bit of game time for Sweden, and will be available off the bench if needed. So yeah, hopefully, Isak is playing in the upcoming games. Just looking forward to how Liverpool are doing right now. So yeah, very excited about the upcoming games. Champions League coming soon as well. So should be some huge games in that competition. Louis Steve, the comment said, Richard Hughes coached a 5-0 win us. Listen, he's done us proud. Let's just say like that. He's done us proud. So yeah, he's coached everything. The way he's done all the business. He deserves a statue. If I'm being honest. So no, he's done amazing, and I'm very pleased in terms of how the recruitment team have come together. Um, Yeah, it's going to be exciting. And one of the fixtures that I'm looking forward to that Louis Steve just mentioned, pretty much read my mind, is Real Madrid at Anfield. That's the one I'm looking forward to. Trent, you better not hide. You better come to that stadium because I don't want to hear any fake injuries or you're not fully fit or he's on the bench. I need him to start. I need him to feel what it's like being a rival player or opponent at Anfield because I think he's disrespected the situation. And look, it's not. I'm not going to talk about Trent too much because for me, it's old news now. But from his point of view, he must be thinking, bloody hell, like when I was there, Liverpool didn't show any ambition to this magnitude. And look, they're spending 400 million like it's nothing. So, if he stuck around, then maybe it would have been a different scenario. But like let's say with certain players. They're never bigger than the club, and there's no player bigger than Liverpool. So for me, I'm pleased in terms of the business that we've done. Would have been nice to have got Marc Guehi through the door, but it wasn't to be. We'll have to be a little bit patient. Hopefully, he arrives in January. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to AR. Thank you to Delulu Steve. Thank you to Dara. Thank you to Iron Batman. Who else do we have? And I think that's it. Big up your guys. Thank you for your engagement as always. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of upcoming content, I plan on doing a couple more shows this week, so we'll have a short break. So what I'll do tomorrow, I think we'll have a. I haven't decided completely. So I have promised you guys that I will be doing a transfer window calling. So if you like to come in and have your say, we'll do that. We'll assess the window in terms of players we've sold, players we've brought in, and we can also assess the lineup in terms of how the squad is looking. Have we got enough strength in depth? So maybe we'll do that show tomorrow, and then I plan on doing a Premier League season prediction show as well, where I will assess everyone's squad with the business all concluded now. I'll have a look at everyone's squad and I'll give you my final Premier League table by the end of the season. That's the prediction that I'm going to give. With context as well in terms of why I think certain teams will finish in certain positions. So those two shows will be lined up in the next couple of days. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you know exactly what time I go live. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.